Welcome to CEO Now. My name is Lars, and today I'm together with Russ from San Francisco. Russ is a serial entrepreneur in the high-tech and medical area, but at the same time, Russ have a lot of experience in distant management, and we know nowadays a lot of executives have to deal with that and find it complicated. So welcome, Russ.
Thank you, Lars. Very happy to be talking with you.
Yes, and I'm very happy you take your time to talk with me. And basically, I'd just like to ask you, how do you manage distant management, and what is the pros and the cons in that area?
Sure. I mean, it's a very important topic, and it's one that, in my experience, is evolving a lot over time. It's in some ways enabled by technology, but as we talk about this, distant management is, management of any type is about relationships.
Yes.
And so if you're going to do, first question we might ask is, why ever do distant management? And obviously, as companies, large and small, become multinational. So one, that may be your responsibility, is to manage people who are far away. So what I would say there is that it all boils down to one thing, which is how you establish a relationship that then is trusted, where you communicate things clearly. In the traditional model, is everyone sits in a room and goes to the same place every day and gets to know each other, and you build communication that way. And that can work, but there are many situations in which that is not appropriate. I may work with a large company and work with their headquarters, but I may be responsible for people on other continents, and I have to be able to build a relationship. So for me, ultimately, face-to-face meetings are important to build relationships, but I've run companies and run parts of companies with people that I speak to every week in a group by phone, and it might be 2 or 3 years before the whole group ever meets face-to-face, or sometimes I've done it where they've never met face-to-face, and yet everyone has a relationship, and it could work sometimes it can be voice only by phone, and that is always very interesting when you have a group that learns to work well together and suddenly they do it by phone. They have no idea, that their best friend and coworker, that they could walk past them in the street and not know who they are. So it really requires good listening skills and teaching a team, having a team that respects one another and that can communicate by voice largely.
Okay, so how are you doing this? Because I imagine other than, I can imagine one-to-one relation also with the co-workers and so on. But do you also have telephone conferences where all the employees are taking part in the same meetings?
Yes, so that's another good question, and the way certainly I've learned to deal with it is that you build one-to-one relationships in order to build many-to-many relationships. So you want people to trust each other enough, and sometimes that happens through a series of one-on-one conversations, but you really get things done in a meeting where you have expertise and authority from many different places, and you have to get people to be effective in a meeting. And when I started this, there was only phone. There was not easily accessible video. So I learned how to build teams that can communicate very well with voice only. Now, it is not expensive to have video conferences, and it adds something to it. But in the end, I really believe it's that listening to one another and learning to speak clearly, to speak briefly. I tend to run meetings on a very regular basis, so every group has a weekly meeting, and they can be anywhere in the world, and that you keep it to a set amount of time so people learn how to respect one another by using that time effectively. Every meeting has an agenda, so at the end of an hour you need to make a series of decisions that then have 1 week to play out, and then the following week you follow up on what was discussed and you set new goals, and it works really well because you can run an organization week to week.
Yes, under distance.
Even under distance.
And I fully understand all the positive aspects and all the flexibility, but then again, if you only have created the relation on a distance by being a good listener, have a very structured meeting and clear communication, so on, have you not ever experienced that you thought you had a good relation, but it turned out that it was not that good because people didn't do their work, or a co-worker didn't return, and with the difficulties and problems?
Well, I think just as if you're working in the same site, you can tell if someone is a good member of a team and is doing their part, if it's well run and everyone on the team that's doing this remotely is engaged. You can also figure out who does not work well in a phone call or in a video call. And I don't know that the problem is any different when you do it by distance, but I would clearly, I clearly feel that, if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. And whatever mechanism you're using, if it doesn't work, you need to either have different people, and that certainly for me, if someone can't work week to week with a call or a video call and get the work done, or doesn't treat their colleagues respectfully on a call, then they're probably not a good person for the team. But I think I would feel that same way if they were in a room every week.
Okay, so as I understand you, whether you are on a distance or you are working in the same building and even in the same office, as an executive, manager, leader for a team, if you are not listening actively, if you don't pay attention, if you don't have empathy, then it doesn't matter. So it's not a discussion whether you are in the same building or on the distance.
That's right. And I find that sometimes doing things remotely forces people to really focus. It's very hard to be on a call where you can't read people's body language. So you need to really focus. And if you're on your phone doing something else, then you're clearly not engaged. And one of the things that's worked very well for me is I tend to keep these meetings that are remote as small as possible, with the minimum number of people, each one of whom has a real responsibility there, and everyone must speak and talk about their area of responsibility. So you learn very quickly who is thinking clearly, who is a good communicator, and who isn't. And if people can't do the job that way, to me, that's a measure that they probably don't belong on this team.
Okay. Thank you so much for taking time.
Sure.
Wish you a nice day.
Yes, you too. Thank you.
Thank you.